In the heart of a dusty old town, where the sun painted golden hues on the weathered buildings, there stood a small saloon known as Jack's Place. The wooden sign creaked in the wind, while inside, laughter and clinking glasses filled the air. Jack, the saloonkeeper, was a man of presence. With his tousled hair and a twinkle in his eye, he was as much a part of the town as the old oak tree planted at its center. Jack had a knack for making everyone feel welcome. Whether it was a weary traveler or a lifelong resident, he would greet them with a warm smile and a hearty handshake. His charm was magnetic. Tales of his adventures echoed through the saloon as he poured drinks and shared laughter. Regulars would gather at the bar to hear his stories, each one more colorful than the last. Despite his friendly demeanor, whispers sometimes floated through the town about Jack's past. Some said he had traveled far and wide before settling in this quiet place, while others speculated about a mysterious darkness that lurked beneath his jovial surface. What drew people in were not just his tales but also the way he could make anyone feel at home, even if only for a moment. As noon approached each day, however, something changed in Jack. He would excuse himself from the bustling saloon, locking the door behind him with an unusual finality. With every passing minute, townsfolk would wonder what their beloved saloonkeeper was up to during those silent hours when laughter ceased and only shadows flickered within. Little did they know that behind that closed door lay secrets that weighed heavily on Jack's heart, a burden borne by another side of him they had yet to see. As the clock struck noon each day, a hush would fall over Jack's Place. The lively chatter and laughter that filled the saloon moments before would fade into an eerie silence as Jack locked the door. Townsfolk, gathered nearby, watched with puzzled expressions as the familiar scene unfolded. Whispers quickly spread about this peculiar routine. What could possibly draw the saloonkeeper away from his bustling bar during such a busy time? Some speculated that Jack needed a break from the demands of serving drinks and listening to stories. After all, running a saloon could be exhausting. Others suggested he might have a secret rendezvous with someone in town or perhaps even a hidden stash of rare liquor. Yet, as days turned into weeks, their curiosity only deepened. Jack's behavior was too consistent to be mere coincidence. Rumors began to circulate like wildfire. A group of old-timers at the bar claimed they once saw Jack standing alone in his back room, staring intently at something only he could see. Some said it was a family heirloom that held sentimental value, others whispered about dark rituals or superstitions he might practice during those hours. A few children even spun tales of ghostly figures flickering in the windows when the sun shone just right. Despite these tales, no one dared to confront Jack directly about his peculiar habit. Instead, they eagerly shared their theories over drinks at neighboring establishments. While some admired him for maintaining an air of mystery, others felt uneasy, sensing that something more profound lay beneath his charming facade. As noon approached each day, anticipation hung in the air like thick smoke. It was both a moment of curiosity and unease that left the townspeople wondering what secrets were locked away behind that closed door, a door that shielded not just Jack's personal life but also a past woven with darkness and regret. Behind the closed door of Jack's Place, a different world existed, one filled with shadows and guilt that haunted Jack more than any ghost could. As he sat in the dim light of his back room, surrounded by flickering candles, he reflected on the choices that had led him to this point. Each candle flickered like a memory, illuminating the faces of men who had wronged him and whom he had poisoned in fits of rage and despair. It all began with small grievances, taunts from drunks who thought they could get away with anything in his saloon. Each slight built upon the other until Jack felt cornered, suffocated by anger and feeling powerless. He believed his actions were justified, a twisted form of justice for the pain they had caused him. However, once the poison was poured and the deed done, a wave of regret washed over him. Jack found it difficult to shake off the weight of his decisions. The laughter and warmth he shared with patrons during operating hours felt hollow when he retreated into solitude. Guilt gnawed at him, turning each memory into a haunting reminder of lives he had taken or ruined. As noon approached each day, the solemn ritual began, a moment to reflect on those men whose lives ended by his hand. Lighting a candle for each victim became both an act of remembrance and penance. He hoped that by acknowledging their loss, he could somehow find peace within himself. Yet, each flickering flame only deepened his remorse. It was as if their spirits whispered to him in the darkness, reminding him that while he might have dealt out punishment, there would be no escape from the consequences weighing heavily on his soul. In those moments alone, Jack battled against his inner demons, torn between the man he was and the man he wished to become, a man seeking redemption amid the flickering shadows of his past. As noon approached, Jack felt a familiar heaviness settle in his chest. The saloon was quiet, and the world outside faded away as he prepared for the ritual that had become his only solace. In his dimly lit back room, a simple wooden table held an array of candles, some tall and pillar-like, others small and unassuming. Each candle was carefully placed next to a small photograph of a man he had wronged. With trembling hands, Jack reached for the first candle and struck a match. The flame flickered to life, illuminating the face of a man whose laughter used to fill the bar. As he set the candle down, Jack whispered the man's name, a name heavy with memories of both good times and bitter endings. With each candle he lit, he felt a swell of emotion rise within him, mingling remorse with something deeper, grief. The act of lighting these candles transformed into more than just remembering those lives, it became an acknowledgement of his own dark choices. Each flame flickering in the dim light symbolized his guilt, casting shadows that danced along the walls as if trying to escape their own fate. Jack understood that these men had families, dreams, and futures stolen by his actions. No amount of candlelight could change that harsh truth. As he moved from one photo to another, Jack's heart grew heavier. He could almost hear their voices echoing in the silence around him, a chorus of lost dreams reminding him that there was no easy path to forgiveness. Yet through this ritual, he hoped for redemption not just for himself but also as a tribute to those he had harmed. By the time he had finished lighting all the candles, the room was filled with soft glows that flickered like stars in a dark sky. Jack stood before them, lost souls illuminated by his regret, each flame a step toward understanding that while he couldn't bring them back, acknowledging their loss was his first step toward healing his own wounded soul. As Jack lit the candles, memories surged forth like ghosts from the shadows, each one dragging him back to the moment when he felt justified in his actions. One flashback took him to a night when a loud and boisterous man named Charlie swaggered into the saloon, drawing attention with his crude jokes and raucous laughter. Jack had tried to defuse the situation, but Charlie only grew bolder, mocking Jack's attempts to maintain order. The crowd roared with laughter at Jack's expense. Feeling humiliated and angry, Jack slipped poison into Charlie's drink, convinced that this was the only way to restore his dignity. As Charlie crumpled to the floor, Jack's triumph quickly transformed into horror as he realized the weight of what he had done. Another memory flickered, revealing a confrontation with a local bully named Frank. Frank had threatened Jack's livelihood, demanding free drinks and intimidating patrons. In a moment of desperation, fueled by fear and rage, Jack decided to take matters into his own hands. He poisoned Frank's glass during a busy Friday night, believing he was defending his saloon and asserting control over his life. But as he watched the chaos unfold when Frank collapsed, a deep sense of guilt replaced any fleeting sense of justice. Each flashback left Jack more burdened than before. The faces of those men blurred together in his mind, transformed from figures of anger to reminders of lives extinguished far too soon. With every poisoning came not just loss but also the realization that each act diminished him further, turning him from a lively saloonkeeper into a man haunted by regret. These memories played on repeat in his mind as he lit the candles, reminding him that every choice carried consequences far beyond what he had ever anticipated. The very darkness that drove him to poison those who wronged him now wrapped around his heart like chains, leaving him trapped in a cycle of remorse from which he yearned to escape. As the townspeople began to notice the flickering candles in Jack's saloon, a wave of mixed emotions washed over them. It started as mere curiosity. Some were intrigued by the sudden display of lights emanating from behind the closed door during Jack's noon closure. To some, it felt like a peculiar decoration, while others whispered of dark rituals or connections to the supernatural. The more the townsfolk observed, however, the more their feelings shifted from intrigue to suspicion. A few brave souls ventured closer, peering through the dusty windows of Jack's place, where they could see the faint glow illuminating Jack's somber face as he lit each candle with trembling hands. Whispers circulated about what those candles truly represented and what haunted memories lay heavy on his heart. Fear soon grew among some residents who recalled tales of men vanishing after crossing paths with Jack. They shared stories over drinks at neighboring bars, speculating that he might be invoking dark powers or performing some unspeakable rites in memory of those he harmed. The once beloved Saloonkeeper was now shrouded in an aura of mistrust. Yet not all felt fear. Pockets of residents who had known Jack for years began to feel pity and understanding instead. They remembered the vibrant man who told amusing stories and offered kindness to strangers. Recognizing the pain reflected in his eyes through those flickering lights, they sensed the remorse he carried for actions that had turned him into a shell of his former self. Some even approached him gently, expressing concern rather than accusation. "Jack," they would say softly, "we're here for you." Their gestured kindness touched Jack's heart in ways he had long forgotten existed. In this small but powerful way, the community began piecing together the man behind the saloon, a flawed human seeking forgiveness and battling demons that lurked far deeper than anyone had imagined. One afternoon, while Jack prepared for his ritual, the door to the saloon swung open with a sharp bang. The sudden noise startled him, breaking the quiet solemnity of the room. In stepped Tom, a familiar face from the past, a man Jack had poisoned in a moment of anger. Tom had survived, but not without consequences. The once jovial man was now marked by physical and emotional scars. "Jack!" Tom shouted, his voice trembling with suppressed rage. Jack turned slowly, a chill creeping up his spine as he faced the man he had wronged. Memories flooded back. He could almost hear the clinking of glasses and laughter from that fateful night when he'd slipped poison into Tom's drink. "How could you?" Tom's eyes burned with a mix of pain and determination. "Tom, Jack started, but no words came to easy lips. The gravity of his actions bore down heavily between them. "Save your excuses," Tom interrupted sharply, stepping further into the dimly lit room. "You think lighting candles makes everything better? You took my life away that night. Do you even understand what I went through?" His voice cracked as he spoke, revealing the deep emotional wounds Jack had inflicted. With each word, Jack felt his heart shatter anew. He had justified his actions at the time, viewing Tom merely as a nuisance deserving punishment, but seeing him now, worn and pained, forced Jack to confront the human cost of his bitterness. "I didn't mean to," Jack finally managed to whisper. "I thought." "Thought what?" "That you were some kind of judge." Tom's raw emotion filled the silence. "There's no redemption in what you did." For a moment, they stood locked in an unyielding stare, two lives forever altered by one moment of rage. Jack's gaze fell to the candles flickering nearby, each representing not only death but also the suffering that followed. The confrontation made Jack realize that he couldn't hide behind his sorrow. He had to make amends not just with candles but also with the living. Tom paused before leaving, offering one last look over his shoulder. "You want forgiveness? Start by facing your demons." And with that, he exited, leaving Jack alone in the haunting glow of flickering candles, a moment of reckoning that would change everything. In the days following Tom's confrontation, a shift began to stir within Jack. The flickering candles in his back room, once symbols of his guilt, now glimmered with the possibility of change. Each flame seemed to whisper a call to action, urging him to confront not only his past but also the future he could create. Jack found himself reflecting deeply on the pain he had inflicted, not just on Tom but on all the men he had wronged. He envisioned their faces, each one filled with confusion, anger, or sadness, and realized that his actions had rippled through families and friendships far beyond what he could see. The weight of this truth pressed down on him, yet within that heaviness lay a flicker of determination. One morning, as dawn broke over the dusty town, Jack decided it was time to finally open up about his past and begin making amends. He stood before the mirror in his saloon, taking a long, hard look at the man who stared back, a man burdened, yes, but still capable of change. "I can't keep running from what I've done," he whispered to himself. It's time to face it. With newfound resolve, Jack prepared to speak to the townspeople. He wanted to share his story of regret and remorse, not just to seek forgiveness for himself but also to show others that it's never too late to change. He envisioned a gathering in the saloon where he would light the candles in memory of those he had harmed while publicly acknowledging his wrongdoings. The internal struggle was intense. He feared judgment and backlash, yet knew that honesty was necessary for true redemption. As he lit each candle that day, he felt a weight lifting off his shoulders. It was as if the flames were cleansing his spirit, transforming regret into hope. That evening, as townsfolk gathered curiously around Jack's place, he took a deep breath and stepped forward. No longer just a saloonkeeper hiding behind closed doors, Jack was ready to face both his demons and his community. This was no longer just about seeking forgiveness, it was about rebuilding trust and finding a way to heal alongside those he had once hurt. The evening had arrived, and the townspeople gathered in front of Jack's place, their faces illuminated by the glow of the setting sun. Jack stood at the center, heart racing as he prepared to light the final candle, the culmination of his journey toward redemption. This candle would symbolize not just the life of another man he had harmed but also his commitment to change and healing. As Jack held the last candle in his hands, he felt its weight more than any of the others. It represented everything he had done wrong and everything he longed to make right. He took a deep breath, remembering all those faces, Charlie and Frank, and realized that this act was not just for them, it was for himself as well. This small flame would mark a new beginning in his life, a promise to never again let anger dictate his actions. Jack struck a match and brought it to the wick. As the flame ignited, warmth washed over him, stirring feelings of hope mixed with lingering sorrow. The flickering light danced before him like a beacon against the encroaching darkness that had shadowed his heart for so long. In that moment, he understood that lighting this candle was not merely an apology, it was an awakening. The crowd watched quietly, tension palpable in the air as Jack spoke from his heart. "I have caused pain," he began, voice shaking but resolute. "Tonight, I light this candle not only in memory of those I've lost but also as a commitment to serve my community better." With each word, Jack felt chains of guilt loosening their grip on him. He envisioned a future where he could be seen not as a saloonkeeper burdened by sin but as a man capable of kindness and understanding. The path ahead would be challenging, filled with struggles to earn back trust, but this moment marked the choice to forge ahead rather than retreat into despair. As he stepped back from the table adorned with candles glowing brightly against the night sky, a sense of peace began to settle within him. Jack knew that redemption was not instantaneous but rather a continuous journey, one he was willing to embark upon for himself and those around him. In the weeks that followed Jack's heartfelt candle ceremony, a transformation emerged within both him and his saloon. The day he lit that final candle marked not just a turning point for Jack's personal journey, but also a new beginning for Jack's place itself. Determined to leave behind the darkness of his past, Jack reopened the saloon with an invigorated spirit, one focused on community, healing, and genuine connection. He began by inviting townsfolk to share their stories. Each night became a gathering of laughter and warmth as people shared tales over drinks. Instead of isolated moments of anger or revenge, the bar buzzed with the sounds of camaraderie and understanding. Jack made it a point to listen more deeply, providing comfort to those who needed it, a sympathetic ear for weary travelers and friends alike. To further connect with the community, Jack organized events aimed at bringing people together. He hosted gatherings that promoted local artists, storytellers, and musicians, showcasing talents that had long laid dormant in the shadows of distrust. The saloon transformed into a hub of creativity and joy, encouraging expressions of love and friendship rather than festering resentment. Jack also took time to speak openly about his past mistakes when appropriate. Each candid conversation was a brick laid in rebuilding trust and shedding light on his own struggles. He realized that by sharing his story of regret, he could help others avoid making similar choices. The townspeople gradually warmed to him again. No longer seen merely as a troubled saloonkeeper hiding behind closed doors, Jack became a figure synonymous with change and resilience. Families began frequenting Jack's place once more, children ran joyfully around its entrance while adults engaged over heartwarming conversations within. Through this metamorphosis, Jack learned to embrace compassion rather than allow anger to define him. His journey toward redemption gave way to renewed purpose, a purpose directed towards fostering community bonds rather than severing them. As the sun set each evening over a bustling saloon filled with laughter, Jack found peace in knowing he had turned away from his dark past and chosen instead a life enriched by kindness and connection.